Hello everybody and welcome to the Western Australian eCrit series powered by KISS and Swift Community Live. My name is Jesper Anker and I will be your guide for tonight's race as well. If you just watched the East eCrit series over on Swift's Facebook page, thank you so much for joining us over here on Swift Community Live. We're going to see the racers in the Western Division take on the same course, 7 laps of the volcano counterclockwise course, with riders such as Ben Simpson, Richard Gills, and Richard Cook being the 3 predominant names to race in the Western Division. 40 riders so far taking the start line here on the pier and about to get underway in a minute as the Western eCrit series is about to begin. So, as always, just a quick reminder, if this is the first time you're hearing about the eCrit series and you're wondering, what is this? Well, it's an electronic criterium racing series taking place from April to September, targeting the Southern Hemisphere, mainly Australia, where Australians will be racing against each other every Tuesday for a shot of entering a live e-racing finale taking place in Melbourne in September. So they'll be racing in the Eastern Division and the Western Division and gaining points every Tuesday towards a grand standings where top 5 in each division will be invited to a live e-racing finale. It's going to be fun to watch these riders today, as we saw the Eastern Division have a bunch sprint, but we've yet to see that in the Western Division. The Western Division so far has been completely dominated by solo time trialing efforts, somewhat similar to what Troy Herfoss did a week ago. That seems to be the most predominant way of winning the Western eCrit series, as we've got Ben Simpson, we got Walsh, we got Richard Cook and Richard Gills being the 4 riders that we're going to keep an eye out on today, as we've got Ben Simpson, the current leader in the overall standings. And speaking of that, let's take a look at the overall standings as they stand so far. So with 4 weeks of racing done already and we're heading into the 5th, Ben Simpson is currently leading the overall standings at 73 points. Richard Gills in 2nd place at 61 points. Richard Cook in 3rd place with 56 points. We've got Anthony West in 4th with 41 and Mikey H in 5th with 32. Several good racers out there as we're watching the start line. We've got 2 of the riders I mentioned so far. As always, we got Ben Simpson in that so recognizable Maratona des Dolomites kit out there that you obtained by finishing the first ever E-Fondo on Swift, as he's sitting at 7 watts per kilogram in this fast-paced start to the race today. Sitting in the wheels is trying to follow the best as Jay Bates, a new face to Swift eCrit racing out there, taking the front as we got a Walsh on the left side here. Do believe this is a different Walsh. I believe the Walsh we saw last week was named L Walsh, but we will confirm that as we go further into the race. What happened last week was quite interesting, to be fair, because we were racing on the Classics course. It looked like our junior racer, Mr. Walsh, was going to win quite dominantly at the finish line, but somehow a mechanical happened. Maybe he punctured, maybe he cranked it, he destroyed his crank, or cassette puffed off the trailer, or something happened. With 10 kilometers to go, he just stopped. He jumped off the bike and he said, enough is enough. I'm not going to get any neutral service and I am out of here. And that meant that Richard Cook could slowly, grab his way back onto the lead, and he beat Ben Simpson with about a minute in last week's race. Great racing out here, but it looks like Walsh may already be out the back here, as the racing is quite fast near the front, and it looks like we're missing Richard Gills off the trio in the front. So the 2 riders to really keep an eye on are Richard Cook and Ben Simpson. It'll be interesting to see if they will mark each other going into today's race. We're doing 33 kilometers of the volcano counterclockwise circuit. You've already seen it once today over on the main Swift Facebook page. It comes down to that little incline going into the sprint finish. That is where the big gaps can be created, and in such a selective race as this, with so few entries from Australia, it all really depends on you following those riders not from Australia and then trying to bridge your way. It's quite an interesting dynamic here in the Western Division, as East have got like 40 to 50 Australians racing against each other, whereas it seems like the Western Division is quite slow to get on this eCrit fever, I guess, as we only have about 10 Australians racing every week, meaning that the tactics are going to differ from week to week, as we see already now Ben Simpson having to put up 5 watts per kilo just to make sure he stays in this front group, as we got Norwegians, Japanese and British riders mixing it amongst the best here, and just making up the numbers. And again, I remind you that if you're not from Australia, you cannot gain points towards the overall standing, that is. So when you're racing here, it all comes down to whether or not you live in Australia. Even though we see riders like eCrit show up time and time again, Skarestad Olsen as well from Norway, they can get in the workout, but at the end of the day, over on swiftpower.com, they will not go down as race finishers at the very end of the day. They will not gather points towards the overall standings, where you have to be from Australia. So it looks like early on here, we've got already selection made at 3 kilometers into the race. Got Cook, we got Ben Simpson, and Bates, with Walsh just hanging on the back with Chen as well, sitting in that. Like most would say, you should sit comfortably in the middle when drafting on Swift and Swift Racing, but to be fair, sitting at the back here, I quite enjoy having the overview myself, and I'm sure Chen is the same way, sitting at 155 beats per minute. Probably has another 10 to work with out there, so sitting at the back, just trying to get the most draft effect he can. As we go on board, we'll see he's got riders in front of him, he's sitting in that wheel, he's saving energy, as Bates now is trying just to move up a tiny bit there as he kicked it up into orange numbers. And since we got a new set of faces in here, let's go over to swiftpower.com and let's take a look at the riders racing all around now to make sure we know what they're capable of producing here in the Western eCrit series. So we've got racing today in the 5th race. Let me just get it up on swiftpower.com here at 7 o'clock Perth time, I believe it is. It is 12 o'clock British time. So in the front here, we have got Mr. Bates. Bates is actually 84 kilos of size, and this is his first time racing out on course, it looks like. So we've got an Australian signing up for his first race out on course, and it'll be interesting to see what he can put out there. It looks like he is on a smart trainer. We got our Walsh, who maxes out at 204 beats, sitting in this group. It'll be interesting to see how he goes along out on course. Now, as we enter the volcano, this is where riders go off the front, and if you are Ben, if you are Richard, if you're Bates, if you're Walsh, if you're Chen, you have to make a decision here. Do you let the other riders chase them down, or do you try to sit in the wheel and then let somebody else do the chasing and you save the energy? Because it is a really hard decision to make, because if you do not bridge across and they get away, it's game over. It's just, the gap is just going to grow out from that moment, and you're going to be in no man's land. You're going to have a tough time coming back. But if you do try to bridge across and you get caught, that is a match burn that you will not get back. But it looks like our 3 Australians in this group, 4 Australians, with Walsh just hanging off the back here. He maxes out at 200 beats per minute, so as we've got 6 laps to go, we should have, actually 7, sorry, he should have more beats to work with and try not to get caught off the back. But it looks like our Australians are staying together, and they have formed a gentleman's agreement to let the other riders go off the front and not chase them down. So, looking at this, so far, in the heavyweight bouts we've had so far, Ben Simpson and Richard Cook have gone 1 for 1 in the races we've broadcasted so far. Ben Simpson left Cook in the dust on the first race in the Classics course, and then for the rematch, Richard Cook retained his belt and beat Simpson on that course. Looked like he was in a bit of a hurt as he raced out there on the Classics course. We'll see who's going to take the tiebreaker here today in the 5th race in the Western division of the eCrit series, as we're having aero power-ups being popped in the middle, a drafting boost being popped up on the left side. This may be a bit premature from Bates, as they're about to hit that climb out on course where the aero power-up can provide to be very vital in staying with the front group. And he's rocking that Swift Dogma F8 Pinarello out there. Not even sure how you unlock that bike, so all power to you, Bates. That is one awesome bike out on course. So look at that frame. Everything about it is just cool. All you're missing, Mr. Bates, is a pair of SIP 808 wheels, and you are flying out there, sir. Making up the head of this group, we got all the Australians with Walsh sitting at the back, and it looks like Chen has been dropped 10 seconds back, and that gap is only going to grow out as the group up here in front is not going to slow down today. So we got Richard Cook in the Cyclo Ops kit. We've got Ben Simpson in the Maratona del Dolomites kit, and then we've got Bates, who I do believe is in the Strava kit. So these are the 3 kits that we should be looking out for out on course now. So we enter the volcano. They've gone over the top of the climb, and now they're entering the finish again. Actually, sorry, this is the reverse way, as they go over the volcano now, and they're starting to sweat out all the pain. And there goes Richard Cook. He's trying to react to the attack of the Italian in front of him. He's going to use every single advantage he can get, and if he can get onto the wheel of Appendino out of Italia, he can bridge across to the riders up in the front group here. And that could actually mean he's going to get a free ride to the finish line here. And this is the decision Richard Cook has gone with. He's on that Trek Madone in a nice blue color and SIP 808 wheels. And he's joined by Takashi, Appendino, Skerestedt, AWE Kepa. A very, very strong group. But it looks like he has just dragged Bates and Simpson back with him. But I'm sure matches will have been burnt here, as we're 10 minutes into the racing now. And several attacks already happening. And it is Richard Cook first to open the ball here today, as he goes to the front and watches his way all the way to the front group here. Now, if you're Bates, if you're Simpson, you have to be wary now. You have to be a bit careful sitting this far back. If another attack comes off the front here, it'll be quite difficult now to bridge that gap. As you can see, the pack is stretched out, and that means the pace is through the roof here, as several riders are trying to break away here in the front of the Western eCrit series. Bates sitting on the wheel there. You've got Ben Simpson sitting at the back of this group, making up the rear. And now, calm before the storm again. Here we go. They're going to turn straight. They're going to go left. And they're going to go up that incline where, if you say the featherweight power up, if you've got a little kick in there, that's where you can put everyone else into the hurt zone. As we still have a collective group now of the Australians in the front. Except for, it looks like Walsh has been dropped. And we're down to a trio. Bates, Cook, Simpson. 8 kilometers into the race. And we've already eliminated pretty much all the competition now, as we're down to the final 3 riders making up the podium here. As we have a rider on the right side from Japan trying to go onto the attack here, and it looks like nobody will be jumping on this one from Australia just yet, looking around saying, let him go, let him go. We're 8 kilometers into this 33-kilometer long race. It can be quite demanding to be alone for that long. So we're sitting with Ben Simpson at the back here. He finished the Dolomites E-Fondo, meaning he's quite a capable climber out there on Swift, so he should have no trouble getting to the top of here while keeping his heart rate down. So you see the heart rate go up. Skerestedt Olsen of Norway goes onto the attack here. Yet again, no Australians ready to react to this move just yet, as they are all marking each other in this pack. And it looks like at the back now, Bates has to be a tiny bit attentive now, as the pack is stretching out again. Cook playing his cards right so far. So we go on board, you'll see he is drafting the KRT racer and the Team Experimental rider in this group right now, and he's drafted them to the full effect, meaning his watts stay somewhat low, yet his pace stays high. And usually the difference between the eCrit East Division and the Western Division is the overall pace of the race. Since we have a more selective group here in the Western Division, usually we see the speed be 44, 45 kilometers an hour, whereas the Eastern Division is absolutely mental and with pace around 51, 52 kilometers an hour. So that is the main difference, but that does not mean the Western Division is less tough than the Eastern Division. It just means that you have to play your cards right, and the decisions you make really make a difference in the long run here. As the 3 Australians once again sit at the back. Bates up to 7 watts per kilogram. He has been dropped for a second here, and he's still not quite back on here, as Bates has to do another kick to get back on. Otherwise, he could be dropped. This could spell the end for Bates. I know it's 0 seconds. It's 1 second between them here. But if you get dropped from that group, it is sayonara, it is goodbye. You will not get back on. But it looks like he puts in a fair dinkum effort there, and Bates is back in the pack here. A third of the way done so far in the Western Division. All three riders are all still together. This is usually what we see in the Western Division. The riders stick together all the way to the halfway point, and that's where stamina kicks in. That's where muscle mass kicks in. That's where riders will make the difference. That's where Ben Simpson has cooked the chef before, or where Cook has left Ben in the dust. We'll see who's gonna be the first one to launch it again. Cook already tried earlier in this race to bridge across, but that attack was nullified by the great efforts all around. We'll see how it goes this time around now. Bates sitting in the second wheel. Cook is on the front now, eating a bit of wind, sitting at 4 watts per kilogram as they pass a runner out there on the Volcano course today, doing his morning laps around the Volcano Park circuit, sitting in and doing well. And we've got Cook front wheel, Bates middle, Ben Simpson far back, and you see Walsh was only 10 seconds behind. Those 10 seconds have now gone out to 1 minute, and I'm sure it's going to grow out to even more before this race is finished. It'll be interesting to see where they finish up in the pack. But I do mind you though that nothing is ever set in stone. If you're Walsh, if you're Chen, just head down, what's up, keep digging at it. You never know what's going to happen. Last week, it looked for certain that Walsh was going to take the victory. And then suddenly, a mechanical out of nowhere made it so that he had to jump off the bike and jump off Swift, meaning that Cook came on to win the race and gained full 20 points in that race. So Ben Simpson coming in second place, gaining 19 points. So, never give up. Keep going. You never know what's going to happen in front of you. You just got to keep digging at it now, as we got Bates sitting in here again. Another attack off the front here, trying to get away. We got the KRT rider digging in, but Australians still sitting comfortably in the group so far. Nobody having to really dig deep into the reserves just yet of the 3 musketeers in this front group. Maybe they'll form an alliance and try to work together, but again, I mind you, it's the difference between the 3 spot on the podiums is 3 points. Technically 2, from 20 to 18. So whether you finished first or you finished third, obviously mentally it's a big boost to finish first and beat the rest. And otherwise, why are you racing? You should always go for the first place. But in theory, it's only 2 points separating first and first and third place. So all you got to make sure that is that you finish on the podium, and you'll gain at least 18 points towards your overall standing, which will rocket you up through the rankings. And if you are Ben Simpson or Cook, that will solidify your place at the top. If you are Bates, it will be a great way of coming into this series now and gaining some points overall. And we're seeing the difference in times. The Eastern Division, we're going around this course in about 5 seconds flat, whereas the Western Division here is seeing 5:22. So the difference being you have 22 seconds more going all the way around, meaning the speed is slower. But yet again, personally, I think I prefer to be in the Western and the Eastern Division if I was racing myself, because there's just a constant pace, there's a constant draft. Whereas here in the Western Division, you rest up, then you have to attack. You rest up, you have to attack. It is proper crit racing between these riders here in the front, as there is never a moment where you can rest up completely and keep your eyes off the racing, because one quick mistake and that's it. You're done for now. As we got the 3 Australians in one line. We got Cook, Bates, Simpson now entering the Volcano, as we're almost halfway through the race now with about 5 laps to go out on course, I do believe. And it looks like we may have a split come around this time in the Volcano course now, as they've been racing for 20 kilometers. And if you're Bates now, you have to be attentive. You have to be, that's what I'm talking about. You rest, you think, okay, the pace is slow, I'm doing well. Suddenly you hit an incline and there they go. And it looks like the 3 Australians now all together, they have been dropped by the rest of the riders from across of Europe, Asia and America. And now the 3 Australians making up the chasing group here. But these are the lead riders from the eCrit series. And Bates now using the fact that he's on a gradient to get a bit of free watts as he tries to break away, but nothing is going to separate these 3 riders as they go out onto the 5th. I believe this may be the 5th. It could be the 6th. It is the 5th lap out there. 5 laps to go now. 3 riders all together, and this is going to be mano a mano between these 3 gentlemen, and let's give them all a big ride on. So if you're watching this, please do find Bates, Cook, and Simpson out there on course as they're racing their hearts out. They all deserve a ride on to let them know that they're actually being watched right now and their efforts are being measured from across the world. Because it's not only you, the spectator, that's watching. It's not only you, the racer, that's watching. It is also the different racers from across the other division, from the Eastern Division, keeping an eye on Simpson, on Cook, on Bates, and trying to get the measure of these riders, because eventually they will see each other in Melbourne for a live e-racing finale, where they will have to go head to head, and they don't have the pleasure of racing against each other in the divisions just yet. That's going to be kept sacred for that final racing event in September, but I'm sure guys like maybe Troy Herfoss, Anthony Vegan Porsche, you've got Pat Law, Glenn Elton, these riders that are looking set to be making that appearance if they keep up performance, they are keeping a keen eye on these racers to try and figure out their style so that when they meet each other in September, they know what they're heading into now. So we're 15 kilometers in, the 3 riders in the front now. This is gonna be an interesting race now, as none of these guys are gonna want to take the front. None of these riders are gonna want to take that wind into their face now. And what's gonna make this group hurt is this rider right behind him here. The Japanese rider AW using C power is 27 seconds behind, and undoubtedly will catch back up to this group here in the front. And once he does, the question is, will he settle in and drag this group along, or will he just go right by him? Because that's going to have a massive impact on this race. He can break this up, or he can leave it alone. It all depends on how AW from Japan feels. 20 seconds, and the bridge is going to be made here in the front, as we see Bates pop a drafting power-up, hoping to get a different power-up going under the finish line banner next time around. You really want either the aero or the featherweight, usually when racing on Swift, and this course is no different. You want the aero power-up going into the sprint, or you want the featherweight going up that little incline. That's really going to make a big difference out there on course. Now it's T-minus 15 seconds till AW makes the bridge up here, and one of 2 things are going to happen. He's either going to sit at the front of this group and drag them along and inject some pace into this, or he's going to go right by them and leave these racers alone. We'll see in about 5 seconds when he catches back up to this front group now, as Richard Cook uses the incline, kicks it up to 8 watts per kilogram, trying to put in the hurt, and there he goes. He utilized the incline, he's gone off the front, he's got a 1 second gap, but Ben Simpson is aware to the fact, and Bates is sitting 3rd wheel. Now Ben Simpson is thinking, yeah, I'm not going to overhaul Richard. I'm going to time my efforts so I slid into that wheel and I sit there and draft. 16 kilometers to go now, and this is like an individual pursuit right now between these 3 riders. It is a heads up 3-man. Who is holding the best pair of cards on their hands right now? Still a long time until they have to go all in, but here comes Mr. AW. Made the way back to the group now, and we'll see what he's going to do. His decision right here is going to make a massive difference on the racing we're about to see. It looks like he goes right off the front, but Richard Cook is aware to this, and Richard is trying to get on to that wheel in front of him as he kicks out to 6 watts per kilogram, and if he can get onto the wheel, but it looks like it may be a match burn, but he's not going to give up just yet. Looking over the shoulder, you got Bates and Simpson aware to this fact, and Richard Cook will not give up. He's trying to get onto the wheel of the Japanese riders out there, and it looks like he may just be successful, but for how long can he keep up 5 to 6 watts per kilogram? And it looks like this effort has dropped a Bates. Bates is now 3 seconds back, 4 seconds back, and he cannot keep up with the 2 juggernauts that are Ben Simpson and Richard Cook. And even Ben Simpson is starting to struggle a tiny bit, as Cook realizes all he has to do is get on the wheel of AW, and that is the victory sealed right there. But it looks like he gives up, and Mr. AW has in fact just been flagged as a flyer, and has it been removed from Swift, it seems like? So, at least he had an impact on the race before he left. Cook, now 3 seconds in front. Ben Simpson will be cursing left, right, and center. Has been dropped by Richard Cook. 3 seconds between them now, halfway through the race. And this is usually where we see the difference being made. Bates, 20 seconds behind. It looks like he may just call it quits, and he will. So, Bates, calling it quits, meaning that he's just going to jump off, had a mechanical, not going to continue with the racing, and now it's down to between Richard Cook and Ben Simpson. Last week, Ben Simpson actually put out more watts overall in the race than Richard Cook did, but he ended up coming down a minute behind Richard Cook, so it'll be interesting to see if he can catch back on. Ben Simpson can still see him as Cook is right up there rocking that blue Trek Madone in the distance as Cook has found a rider out on course to draft off, and Ben Simpson not giving up just yet, but looking at his heart rate, it is way up high right now. And he is into that zone where you start burning fat almost as he's going through his sugar depositories. And this is a tough effort now being put in by Ben Simpson and Cook. Our first and second place out on course. Also first and second place in the overall standing. But at the end of the day, it's only a 1 point difference between these two riders. So for Ben Simpson, it looks like the decision has been made just to find an effort he can sustain, not try to bridge too quickly, too ascensive, up to Richard Cook, and all for him is just the goal is to beat Walsh and beat Petschak, who are about a minute and a half behind, and that is his goal now, as he's got 16 kilometers to go, about 4 laps yet to race, and it looks like the race for the first place, as it stands right now, has almost been decided as Richard Cook now gets into his TT mode, holding 4.5 watts per kilogram, just trying to find a rider to work with out on course here. And again, if you're watching over on Swift Community Live and you've enjoyed the race until this point so far, make sure to click that like button right below here to let us know that you want to see more racing like this. Always a pleasure to bring this live racing to you right here on Swift Community Live. Thank you so much for watching and keeping us company as Richard Cook, Ben Simpson, Walsh, Page, Chen, Yates, all these riders put out serious efforts out on course. It looks like Richard Cook is just going to use a few seconds of rest behind the rider ST out on course, and then he's going to jump around him again once Simpson gets close. But that's the difference here, as Richard Cook is racing smart. He is racing up, trying to find riders out on course that he can work together with, albeit they may not be in the race, yet he can still get a draft effect, get his heart rate down. As you see, it's come down to 170, 165 in a second, I would assume. And the gap to Ben Simpson is still growing out here as Richard Cook is surmounting. He's about to go back to back. He's about to win that tiebreaker between him and Ben Simpson. If he can keep this up for another 15 kilometers off the volcano, steaming hot circuit out there as we're watching the finale of the 5th race in the Western Division of the eCrit race powered by KISS, live here on Swift Community Live. My name is Jesper Anker, of course, and I am your commentator today here as we're watching Richard Cook and Simpson go up in a head-to-head battle for first and second place. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below right now. Do you think Ben Simpson can do the impossible and just slowly but surely gain time on Richard Cook and get back into contention for that top spot on the podium? Or do you think Richard Cook is simply too strong to get away? That is going to be the storyline now as we watch the riders go to the finish line. And Ben Simpson is still keeping a 1 minute and 21 seconds down to the chasing group behind him. And that's what he's going to try to keep up with, as I've got something in my eye. It may be just a pure power being put out on course, just going up right into my face now as it's starting to even get red. Anyway, solid effort by Richard Cook and Ben Simpson. They've raced every single race so far, every Tuesday for 5 weeks straight. Richard Cook, Ben Simpson, usually Richard Gills is in here as well. They raced, and today is no different, as Cook has found another rider out there, even though he's in a workout mode, so he cannot be drafted though, as Richard Cook is putting in a solid effort, settling it out, and looking forward in the eCrit series. What is happening on Swift? The next 2 races will be on the London Classics course, and I believe it will be 7 laps of the Classics course for the next 2 Tuesdays. Albeit though, I will not be commentating those 2 races. I think you'll be in the company of Nathan Guerra. Always good commentator, always the main guy here on Swift Community Live, doing God's work here on Swift Community Live. If you're not into racing, but you still want to be part of a group ride out on Swift, I do highly recommend you look up the Cycling Tips eFunder that is happening this upcoming weekend. You're going to take on the Pretzel. It's going to be good fun. Over 1,000 riders are going to take the start line, and you can be one of them. It's going to happen on Sunday, I believe, around noon Australian time. So I do recommend you show up to that group ride, have a fun time, see what the fastest time you can set on the Pretzel course. So just ride, see what it's like to ride with 1,000 other riders. Maybe there are going to be some pros, maybe there are going to be some VIPs. All that matters is that you have fun. And once you cross that finish line, you will be given a Swift eFundo jersey. So if that's not incentive enough for you to get out there and kick some tires, I don't know what is. If you also want to join a more weekly event, there is the Aussie Day Hump Ride, which takes place every Wednesday, I believe, which is great fun. 300 riders from across Australia, across the world, sign up and ride together. And at the very end of this, there is the after party, where we see who's got the strongest and best legs on the day. But prior to that, it's just chill, ride around, have a bit of a chat with your fellow Australians, and essentially it's just a coffee ride happening at the comfort of your basement, your pain cave, wherever you're based in the world now. So we're 21 kilometers into the race, 3 laps to go still, and Richard Cook looks set to take the victory out there on course. Let me just take a look at what's going on. Plenty of information being thrown my way. I'm trying to keep up to date on what happened earlier today in the in the Eastern Division. Still awaiting official results, but as we saw, Troy Herfoss won the sprint in front of Aaron Dunn in great fashion. Looks like Brody Gooding of Innovation Cycling, a new name, a new racer out there, also did very well. Jeffrey Creel and Anthony Vegan Porsche rounding up top 5. Will Hodges, Glenn Elton, Tim Stora, a familiar name there, also did very well, but we're still awaiting official results out on course for the earlier race that took place today in the eCrit series. So there's a bit of dull in the action. What is happening in the world of Swift besides Aussie Day Hump Ride and the eFundo? Well, of course, there's the eCrit happening every Tuesday, but if you also want to race and the eCrits on Tuesdays doesn't fit you, there is the Thursday Kiss Down Under taking place at 9 o'clock in the morning for me. I believe it's 6 o'clock Australian time. So if you want to take part in that, that's also great fun. You're going to be matched up against some of the best Australians out there, as well as Europeans or even Americans that decide to race at midnight their time. It's great fun, and I do highly recommend you take a look at that. And it looks like further back here, this is not quite over yet. So we got 37 seconds now between Ben Simpson, Chen, and Walsh further behind here. If you are Ben Simpson, you may start to panic, but looking at his heart rate, even if he was to get caught, he would have a few extra gears hidden out down there on that spare sprocket, back sprocket, as he is pretty strong. He's very strong. Maxes out about 180, 190. Ben Simpson, he's got Walsh, he's got Cheng. Let's take a look if Walsh is in a group. I do assume he is. Yes, he's got a week from Japan pacing him along as he's catching back up to Ben Simpson, and Simpson is doing the smart thing, realizing that Cook is out of reach unless maybe he can catch up to Walsh and Vic, and they can work together along with Chen, who is about to make the bridge up to Walsh. So first place may be out of reach, but second is still very much in play, as well as you got Pet Shack here on the back. So 3 Australians have kept their head down but kept their watch through the roof, and they're now about to make the junction over to Ben Simpson. So Ben Simpson looked like he had a guaranteed second place secured, but the fact that the guys behind him, the riders behind him, have been working together flawlessly so far could mean that it's going to come back together. But it looks like Ben Simpson, we know he maxes out about 4.2 watts per kilogram in FTP, so he has to play this smart. He's got a fairly good sprint on him, but with newcomers such as Cheng, Walsh, and Pet Shack, it will be interesting to see how Simpson is going to play this out, as Cook is still cementing his lead. 1 minute ahead of him, 1 minute and 20 in front of the riders behind. Only way he gets caught is if Ben Simpson gets caught within the next 10-15 seconds, and that group just starts steamrolling, going faster and faster and faster, because they've got about 11 kilometers now, which is like 2.5 laps to go, 3.5 laps. So We'll see. Ben Simpson is definitely going to be caught now, as Walsh is working together with this nice group he's found out there. So the battle for second place is still very much in play, as Richard Cook now at the front, done so well, utilizes his surroundings, went on to the attack, and now second place. It is going to be a battle. The gap to Richard Cook is only a minute now, with the group going so much faster behind him. This could come all back together. This could be the best race we've seen so far in the Western Division. Nothing is quite over yet. I may have called it early, but I do not hear the fat lady singing just yet. So hang on to your horses, ladies and gentlemen. These jockeys are about to give it their all now, as we've got 10 kilometers left of racing, and Ben Simpson is just trying to get the speed up, because in a second now this group is going to come steaming by. Walsh, Cheng, Petschak rounding up top 5 in the Western Division. They're going to come by with so much speed that if you're Ben Simpson, they might just come by the sound of light, and just boom. You have to start gaining speed, gaining momentum, and try to match your velocity to the one of this group here. And that's what he's doing now. He's ramping it up now. 3.4 watts per kilogram, 4.5 watts per kilogram, 5 watts per kilogram. He is trying to get his speed up, so when the inevitable happens that he gets caught by this group, he will not have to put out a big effort to try and get back in. He will just slot in the wheel, and then he'll try to get the draft. 1 minute and 20 up to Richard Cook. If Cook is cooked, if he's well done, this could come all back together. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a race on our hands for the first time here in the Western eCrit division. Walsh, Chen, Petschak, and Ben Simpson versus Richard Cook. 1 versus 4. By the law of numbers, the 4 should win, but the 1 out there is a gladiator. He's a juggernaut. He is one of the few riders that possesses an engine like no other. And Richard Cook, 1 minute 11, 1 minute 10, 1 minute 9. It is coming back together now, as Ben Simpson has been caught, it looks like. He's just going to sit on the back of this group now and take his position, trying to draft. Now the gap is between Richard Cook at 104 and Mr. Walsh here at the back. Walsh, a newcomer to the race, and so is Petschak. Let's see how these racers handle it now, as we've got 3 laps left to go out there. The lead now is tumbling down to Richard Cook. We're now below a minute, down to 58 seconds, as this group is working together. This is gonna be an incredible ending. I want to hear your thoughts right now in the comment section. We've got this chasing group, we've got Richard Cook. Which group is gonna take the victory, and which rider is gonna come out victorious on the other end of this volcano shower as they're about to enter? 57 seconds, 56 seconds now. Petschak up in the speed. This is gonna come down to the wire, ladies and gentlemen. Cook is going to have to find every single skill set in his repertoire to take this victory all the way to the finish line. He thought he could cruise. He put that one into neutral, but now he has to go back up into drive, and he is about to floor that pedal to the metal, because he's going to go all the way now, and he's going to have about 56 seconds between him and the lead group once they exit this volcano now. But this group cannot settle down. They've caught Ben Simpson. They gapped the 30 seconds they had to him, but they've got to keep this up. The group consisting of several riders from across the world, but most importantly 4 Australian riders. The 4 Australians really have to dig deep now. They've got to try and catch up to Cook on the front here, as he's 1 minute and 5 now, but that's due to the gradient. They're different parts of the course. I would expect them to, once they exit this, the gap will come down, so we've got 2 laps to go. 2 laps to go in the Western Division. Another 10 minutes of racing now. Who will take this one now? Even though it looks like they may be resting on their laurels in this group, though, because they caught Ben Simpson. That is a minor victory. They have won the battle, but the war is still very much going on now, and they've got to try and catch up to Richard Cook in the front. Otherwise, they'll all end up like sous chefs behind Richard Cook, with his 5 Michelin stars going on right now. Got Chen on the front now, putting down the hurt with a Coda. And let's take a look at what the time is. It's still 106, 107, as he's sitting at 172 beats per minute. He's also got 2 laps to go, but just take a look at the difference of speed. You see, they're going 46 kilometers an hour. We got Richard Cook going 39. If he keeps this up, this group behind are going to come chasing by in a matter of seconds. Come on now, this back group has been injected a bit of pace. Let's just give them all a quick ride on to let them know that they're being watched and they're being measured. They're putting out real efforts right now, and they still have Richard Cook to catch up to, but all these riders, they're in the red zone right now. They're really having to dig deep and use those depositories, last minute depositories, just get everything they've got. 1 minute still out to Richard Cook, who's sitting at 4 watts per kilogram. You got Chen, you got Walsh, you've got Simpson here. The question is now, how much has Simpson left in the tank now? Because it's going to play into his hands, as he's been proven so far to be the strongest out on course. But there's still a minute. There's still a minute separating Richard Cook and this chasing group. And it looks like nobody's really putting down the hood, even though the pack is stretched out. We got Coda sitting at 4.4 watts per kilogram. So at some point, these Australians have got to make a move, because if they can get that gap down to 30 seconds, then it's bridgeable, then it's gappable on that final incline into the volcano. But you have to remember, Richard Cook here, he's settling into his TT effort. He is digging deep now, and if you catch him, if you catch out to him, I would expect him to have nothing left in the tank. There is no gas stations where you can fuel up. There are no places where you can buy extra matchbooks. Once you run out, that's it. It's game over. You can light no more fires if you are Richard Cook. She's out to 55 seconds now. No power-ups have been popped so far in this group. 54 seconds, 53 seconds. It looks like Chen is listening into the broadcast and injecting a bit of pace here in the front again. Coda, 53 seconds out to Richard Cook. They've got 2 laps to go, and they're soon about to enter the final lap of the Western eCrit Series. Who's going to take all 20 points in this race? It's going to come down to whether or not this group can kick it up into gear and work together. They've got to start that engine and work together all the way to the finish line. They've got one man they've got to chase, Richard Cook, who's now sitting at 2 watts per kilogram. Has he broken up? Has he gone poof? No, doesn't look like it just yet. Kicks into 4 watts per kilogram again. He may have been on a slight decline at this slight descent, trying to rest up, as we're watching Chen sit at 133 beats per minute. He's got plenty left to work with. Ben Simpson is sitting, that can't be right. Is Ben Simpson sitting at 56 beats per minute? He must really have been resting up. Maybe he took that heart rate monitor, threw it off, and said, no more, I'll listen to my heart. I'm not going to listen to my brain on this one. So that's what they're going to do. They're going off the front here, and Richard Cook again after 58 seconds. It looked like this group were going to chase up and get back together here, but 56 seconds, 55 seconds. It looks like the gap has stabilized at that margin, and if he can keep this up, he will most definitely walk away with the victory here, as he's into that aero position on the Trek Madone, all in no man's land, as he's about to go up this incline for the penultimate time today. When he's done this, there's one more lap to go, one more effort, 4 kilometers of this. Can he hold it up now? Down to 50 seconds. He's got to kick it into orange numbers, because these riders behind him, they will do just that. 49 seconds now between Richard Cook and this group, and they're still keeping it civilized here. There's almost too much cooperation. There's almost too much, agreement in this group. They need a bit of anarchy. They need a bit of pace in this group. Somebody needs to start attacking this and inject some pace off the front. But the question is, who? Who's got what it takes to race? We only really know Richard Cook and Ben Simpson from this pack and what they're able to do. These are the riders we're looking at. But here we go off the front. We've got Cook at 43 seconds, 39 seconds. Petshak is the one to enable the pace here. 40 seconds now, as they will also enter the final lap out on course in the Western eCrit Series. And it is shaping up amongst the front here for the second place and third place on the podium, with first place not being too far out of reach though. 4 kilometers to go, 43 seconds. They need to catch 10 seconds per kilometer. This may be an impossible task, but we all know that if somebody can do the impossible, it is Mr. Ben Simpson, who's sitting at the back here. He has rested up. He has burned a few matches, but I'm sure his matchbook still contains a few more coal-infested wood pines that can light up fires, and we'll see if Ben Simpson is ready to go. He gets back on the front here, gets back on the group, sets in 42 seconds still to Richard Cook now. Who's going to inject a bit of pace? Pet Shack up to 5.6 watts per kilogram as they go under the start-finish banner. Here is the final lap. They're going to hear that bell ring for the first and final time today here in the Western eCrit Series. Race 5, 33 kilometers, 7 laps of the counterclockwise volcano circuit. We'll see who's going to take the second and third step on the podium. I think it's too late to catch Mr. Richard Cook now, as they've got 4.2 kilometers to catch back up, and it looks like the Cook has gone and done it again, earning himself another Michelin star all the way on the frontier. 41 seconds down to Pet Shack. It's going to require a long-range attack from any of these riders out here to be able to bridge across up to Cook, but it looks like he's kept something back now. He's kicking up to 6 watts per kilograms. He's got what it takes to go all the way to the line with this one. He's done it last week, last Tuesday, and now he's about to do it again today. Long-range attack, 16 kilometers to go. He utilizes his surroundings, and he got the gap. He broke Bates to the to the point where he jumped off the bike. He broke Simpson to the point where he got caught from the group behind. Now the question is, Cook 36 seconds, 35 seconds, 3 kilometers to go now. Walsh taking it to the front, 6.5 watts per kilogram, 8 watts per kilogram. This is an attack on the rest of the group. This could be it now. This is the long range attack. Walsh into 5 watts per kilogram. Who is going to react to this? We've got no movement from Chen, Simpson, or Pet Shack. This could be it for Walsh. He's bridged across to the right in front of him. He needs to come around him though. He needs to be able to hold about 4 watts per kilo to bridge across now. 30 seconds up to Richard Cook. 2 kilometers to go. Halfway throughout the lap now. And Walsh is utilizing the draft effect to the maximum out here. As we got Chen now realizing the danger. Going to the front in that Swift vintage kit. And he's got Ben Simpson sitting in his wheel. Now suddenly the gap up to Cook seems surmountable. It seems reachable. 30 seconds, 29 seconds, 2 kilometers to go now. They have got to give it everything from here to the finish line, but it looks like they're playing a cat and mouse game here in the back now. Walsh, 5-second gap. Pet Shack sitting behind now, trying to inject a bit of pace, but it looks like it's going to be too little, too late now, and Walsh may just walk away with the second place if he can catch up to Cook. This could be first place. He is working together with a rider out on course. 26 seconds now, 25 seconds, and Richard Cook is realizing the danger. Panic is starting to kick in now. He's got about 1.5 kilometers. He's got about 1.7 kilometers from this point, and 24 kilometers, or 23 seconds, sorry, is gappable in that time frame. If Walsh can keep this up all the way to the line now, Richard Cook cannot look over his shoulder. He's got to dig deep now. The battle for first place, Cook and Walsh. Cook has been out there for all of the stage so far, and Walsh is fresh. He's ready to go and show what he's got. He's got to keep the watts high though, as Cook now at the front now. Only thing that's between him and a victory right now is a slight incline to the finish line. But how much does he have left? Lactic acid is going to start to build up. He's been averaging about 4.2 watts. And here goes Walsh. He's popping that aero power up. This is his move to try and get back on terms with Richard Cook. Popping the aero power up, making him more aero, making him faster. And he's trying to utilize that on the descent and the flat part. 18 seconds up to Richard Cook. Can you feel that? That is the nervousness. That is the density in the air right now, that he's just trying to get back on terms with Richard Cook. 15 seconds, 14 seconds, 1 kilometer and about 800 meters left to go. Cook, 14 seconds. This could come down to the very end here. I may have called it just early, as Richard Cook, 14 seconds. We can see him further back. He's just going to come around that corner, and he's second now, and there he goes. 12 seconds to the front. Walsh's heart rate is through the roof now. 12 seconds to the front. It's going to come down to the wire now, as there is 10 seconds between them, and here they go. Richard Cook goes on the final incline. Right here is about 700 meters to go now. Cook versus Walsh, head to head. Cook has been out there all day, kicking up to 7 watts per kilogram. Does Walsh have what it takes to get back on? He is 8 seconds behind. You can see them up there going into the volcano. It could be too little too late. It depends if he's got another kick inside of him. He's got 500 meters to go now as Cook is inside the volcano. The finish line is just around the corner, and Walsh versus Cook. Walsh versus Cook. 8 seconds, 9 seconds. Walsh has got to start his sprint right now. He cannot afford to wait for the final seconds. This is where he's got to go. 9 seconds, 10 seconds. It looks like he has blown a gasket though, as we've got Richard Cook out in the front now at 4 watts per kilograms, and it looks like he will take the victory definitively right here, right now. It came down to the line, but ultimately Walsh just did not have what it took to catch up to Cook, but a great second place. First place to Richard Cook. Under the finish line, arms raised high to serve the victory. Second place is going to be Walsh. Going further back, we got the fight for third place. Chen, Simpson, and Peschek. Who's going to take this? We got Chen sitting in there. Simpson goes just around this corner. It's 100 meters to go now. There he goes. Simpson, anything he's got left. It looks like he's in a world of pain, but he'll take Chen on the line. Great racing from everyone. Thank you so much for taking part in today's West eCrit series powered by Kiss and Swift Community Live. If you want to watch more broadcasts like this, click that like button. Maybe even share this with some of your friends. It's been great racing, and we'll see you guys same time next week on Tuesday with Nathan Guerra at the head of things, of affairs. So thank you so much for watching. My name has been Jesper Anker, and I will see you in Australia very, very, very soon.